For me, 2020 is all about bringing more love into my life as well as sharing that love out to the world. So with that theme, we've created these projects which we're calling the Blooming Heart Wreaths. And these are such a great project that you can do by yourself, and you can gift one of them to a friend, or you can bring some friends over, maybe your mom, maybe your kids, and sit and make them together. When I sit down to craft, I love to set the stage, and the environment and everything around me is really important. So in this box, we've included this recipe for this beautiful Paloma cocktail. Now you can make that with alcohol or without, depending on who's sitting at the table. I also have a playlist for you so you can set the mood, and I'm wearing my All You Need Is Love t-shirt, and you have the SVG cut file right there for you so you can make one too. Inside your box, you'll find all the components that you need to make 2 wreaths. There's 2 metal frames that are heart-shaped. One is gold and one is silver. And the beautiful thing about the silver is you can spray paint it to be any color that you like. There's also a camellia flower pack. This makes 6 camellias and 6 buds. It also has leaves, and this is enough to do the 2 wreaths. There's a package of cotton spun paper balls for the insides of the flowers, and then a package with 2 beautiful silk ribbons, one for each wreath. The tools you'll need to make this project would be a hot glue gun, and I like to use the high temperature for this paper. I also have a curling tool, and if you don't have one of these, you can use the edge of your scissors. I do have a pair of small scissors to cut the ribbon. And then I've collected an assortment of pins so that I can add some words of love on the back of my leaves. The first thing we'll do is make the paper flowers. And I really love this flower. They're actually quite easy to make, and they're so beautiful. The camellia flower pack has 2 different colors of camellias, and each one has 3 of each color. So for the wreaths, I will use 2 of the dark and 1 of the light, and then the other wreath, I'll use 2 of the light and 1 of the dark. To make each flower, you'll want 2 of the first page, and this one has 3 different sets of petals, and you'll notice that the smallest set has a little hole in the middle. That's how you can tell the difference. And then I'll also want 1 sheet of the other, which looks like this. There's again 2 different sets that are larger, and then 1 small one, but that one doesn't have a hole in the middle. So we'll do 2 of these and 1 of these for each flower. I'll make 1 flower at a time so that we can show you exactly the steps on how to make them. First thing I'll do is go ahead and punch out my petals, and I'm going to stack them in like petals. So you can see there should be 2 of each shape. I'm punching 2 layers out at a time. So we have 2 of this shape with the hole, and then just 1 of this shape without the hole. And 2 layers of the largest petal, and then 2 layers of the smallest petal. And I'll set these aside. For the bud, I'll be using 1 of the petal sets, center petal sets that has a hole, and then 1 that doesn't. So I'm going to take those and set them aside. And the first thing I'm going to do is start curling my petals. For the smallest, I'm just going to curl it just like this. Just going to make it a nice round curl. And the way that you do this is pinch the petal right between your thumb and the curling tool, and then just drag that right along, similar to what you would do with a Christmas ribbon. Okay, that's ready to go. And then these are a little bit more difficult. You'll want to make sure and grab a little bit down on your petal so that you don't tear at the weakest point. And I'll go ahead and do the same thing all the way around. I'll move this so you can see. And not every petal will curl exactly the same, but you do want to give it a nice curl. If you need to go over it more than once, that's better than tearing it. So maybe be gentle at first, and then give yourself, some practice to know how much you can curl it. Now I'm going back, and I'm going sideways, almost at an angle, like a 45-degree angle, to get some shape. I'm just running that edge of the petal right between my finger and the curling tool. Now I flip it the other way and go the other direction. So each of these petals has 3 curls, and this makes a really beautiful cup. You can get a lot of shape out of that. I'll continue to do that with all of my petals. If something happens and you do rip a petal off, don't worry, just glue that right back on. It won't show once we get the flower layered and glued together. You won't even see it. I've had a lot of practice curling paper, so don't expect that you'll be whipping it out just like I do. It takes a little practice. So be kind and gentle and loving to yourself when you're working on this. I think, you know, the joy is in the journey. The joy is in the process of making it and just really savoring and enjoying the touch of the paper, the feel of it, the sound of the music that you're playing, and even the taste of your little drink over here. That's the joy of making this project. So this might be a good place for you to pause the video and go back and, you know, maybe even watch it again as you curl all of your petals and get them all prepared. I'll go ahead and do the center here, and this is simple. I'm just going to, you know, do it one direction for, this is actually the bud. So the bud has two pieces. So again, pause, or you can replay until you have all of your flowers ready to assemble. Make sure you keep them in stacks though. I finished curling all 3 flowers for one wreath, and I've stacked them up, but I want to show you something. I did tear off one of my petals, and this is how I just glued it right back on. And again, you can see it won't even show. You're going to need 1 ball for each flower and 1 ball for each of the centers, and this is how we're going to start. Now, this is a little different from the video with the pack because we did put a wire on this and I didn't use the ball. I figure the ball is just a great way to make this, and you can make this shape so easily, and anyone can do this. So I'm going to center that ball right into the smallest piece and just add a little tiny bit of glue, and we're going to wrap these small petals around the ball. And I'm doing it fairly snug so that none of the white of this cotton spun ball will show. So you want to be a bit mindful of how these petals lay down to cover up that white. That structure really helps get this flower going. And the trick is to make sure none of your glue is showing, and you know, once you're done with the flower, you can take all of your glue strings off. Then I'll turn this over, and this is the base, and we will add just a dot of glue. And then take the smallest petal, the smallest set of petals, and place that right on the back. And you can see where the hole was, that's where the wire would go, but since we're not using wires, you just try to stack those hole punches one right on top of the other. Now when I put this one on, I'm going to rotate it so that you can see the petals from the last layer right through the spaces. Now you can continue to do it this way. You can also put each of the 2 sets together first and then join them. That might also be easier. So I'll do it this way, and then I'll switch it up and do it another way on the next one, so you can pick which version you like the best. And just keep rotating those, and you'll want to hold your hot glue just a bit. When you layer your hot glue one on top of another, the lower layers might get a bit soft, so you'll want to make sure and hold that as you go. And here's the last set of petals, and there is a beautiful camellia flower. I'm going to let that cool before I do any ruffling and touching, but we'll just leave it there. Now I'm going to do this to the next flower as well. We'll do the same thing, start with the ball in the center, and then just cover up that white. I'm placing 1 petal and then the one across so that I know that it's nice and snug. Sometimes I can even use some of the same glue that I've placed. Kind of doing this little crisscross action. And then the last piece. Okay, so another way that you can assemble these, see if I can pull some of this glue string off. So you can take the 2 same size petal layers and arrange them face up, 1 set at a time. That might give you just a little bit more control, and you can see how the petals fold forward if you're doing it face up. Make sure those get nice and rotated. It's a little bit trickier. When you have the wire, you just slide them right on and you always know that they're perfectly centered. Sometimes I had to peel this one off just to set it one more time. I got it a bit off center. Okay, that's ready. And then I'll go back the other direction. and start placing the smaller petals inside the large ones. So there's two different versions for you. Pick whatever one works best. I'll finish up my third flower. You can put this on pause if you want to, so you can finish up all three of your flowers, and then come back and I'll show you how to assemble the buds. Once these have cooled off, you can put your fingers underneath the petals and squeeze them towards the center just a bit to reshape the flower as you like. Then for these buds, you have the piece with the hole and the piece without the hole. So we're going to start with the piece that has the hole, place the ball in the center, and do exactly the same as what we did for the flower centers. You can see how I'm putting the glue on the white ball rather than the actual petal paper, and this really kind of helps keep the glue tucked away so that it doesn't squeeze out and you can see it. Then we'll take this other piece without the hole and we'll place that over the top, and I'm going to do my best to make sure each petal goes over the seam. So I'll turn this over and do the same this direction. It seems to be easier just to put the glue right down the petal when you are doing the second set. And since you're layering paper, it won't be quite as tight. And there's one more piece. I'll turn it over. This will be the top, the one without the hole. One more piece that you'll use to finish off this bud is this green sepal. And I'll go ahead and give this a nice curl. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 3-direction curl. Some of them are thicker. Put some glue on the base and just set the bud right inside, and then we'll very gently add just a touch of glue to each piece and place it onto the petal, just to keep it nice and tight. Since the hot glue does take a bit longer to cool off, sometimes it does help to keep your fingers holding everything in place while it cools. At this point, you can pause your video and go finish your other 2 buds, or you can rewind and watch it again. The next thing we'll do is prepare the leaves, but I have something else I want to do before I start curling them. So I love sentiment, and I just love to add that little touch of meaning. So on the back of the leaves, I'm going to take one of these pens and I'm going to write something that I love, something in my life that I love and I have gratitude for, because I think gratitude should be a year-round thing, not just for Thanksgiving, right? So I'm going to turn them over so that I have the score line on the back side or front side, but we're going to place that towards the table. And then I'm going to take a moment and just think about all the things that I love in my life that I want to create more of this year. Snuggling with Enzo. Having little furry friends is such a great thing. Enjoying my weekly dinners with my daughter. So go ahead and put your personality on the back of these leaves. You'll want to make sure that you use a pen that's permanent or even a little Sharpie so that it doesn't rub off when you start to fold and curl your leaves. So I have all 7 of mine done. And now I will fold them right along. I'm going to go do it backwards first, but there's a little score line. I'll fold them backwards and then I'll fold them back the other direction. And then just add a touch of shape and curl around the edge of your leaf. Maybe even do a little kick on the tip as well. If you're making this wreath for a friend or for your mother, you could always put things that you love about them on the back of the leaves and then make sure when you assemble it that they can read those. I think that's really special and meaningful. Now everything's ready to glue onto your wreath, but there's one little extra trick I'm going to show you. And as you can imagine, gluing paper onto metal, it doesn't always stick so well. So we are going to pull some of our scraps here and we'll use the scissors to make little strips of paper. I'm just going to cut out this section I want to make sure it's long enough to go around the metal. It seems to be enough. And I'll just take and make one strip for each of my pieces. Now I may not need to use all of them because it could be that I'm gluing some things on top of the other. But as long as you're gluing paper to paper, you'll have much better luck. And I'll do the same for my leaves. I may not need something for every leaf, but just make sure you have enough on hand. I don't have quite as much scrap on my leaves, and I'm gonna do some different shorts and longs. And if you want to, you can actually shape the ends of it. If you feel that would look better, you can make points on each end. This will get me started, and I can always cut more if I need. I might even go back and make those prettier. Set those aside. Now I'm going to figure out exactly how I want this wreath arranged. So for this wreath, I'm going to do a lower design, probably I would say right here. You know, you can go up on the corner here. You can decide exactly where you want them. And the leaves are just a vague idea. We'll add the leaves at the end, and I may shift it as I go. I think I want to tuck these two really close, and then maybe this one, give it some space. And the leaves I will kind of integrate around. So let's go ahead and start with this bottom one. And what I'll do, I'll hold that in place where I want it. Add enough glue to cover the whole thing, and then place that back behind the wreath, and then I can feel it as it goes around, and I'm just squeezing that right into place. And again, you'll want to give it some time to cool. It is going to move around a little bit, which is all right, because then I can adjust it and then glue it into place once I'm ready. I'm going to do the same with this one, but I think this one I want it to sit a bit more on the outside. Put quite a bit of glue there. Adjust it around. There we go. And to keep these snug together, I'm going to add some glue to the edge of this petal and attach it to this one. You can see how I'm placing it on the back of the wire and then pressing the paper onto the paper and letting that cool. I want a bit more of a gap here, so I think I'll use the bud in between, and we'll secure it with a leaf underneath. So for the bud, it's a little bit more difficult because I'm not going with the wire. I think I'll start here, and then we'll see how this works. I'm going to place it between the two flowers, and then I'll take this leaf, put some glue on the back here, and let the leaf help hold that bud into place. Once I have it assembled on the front, I'll turn it over and secure and make sure everything's secure on the other side as well. This is where you can get really creative on how you lay them out. I definitely want to see a leaf coming out this direction, so I'll go ahead and do that. I'm going to glue that right onto the back of the flower, and then we'll do the same thing on this side, although I think I want a smaller leaf. And in this case, I glued it behind the metal, and I'll secure that here in just a minute. Right now I'm doing mostly design, and I want to put the bud right here on this side. So I'm gluing that to start to the two petals of the large flowers, and then I'll secure that with a leaf behind it. You can always go back and tuck more glue behind your designs. I think the bud should be right up here. We have two more leaves, so let's see, how about I'll add a leaf right here, and then one more here. Now I'm going to just let this sit and cool for just a few minutes so that I know things are pretty much in place. And once I feel like it's cool, I'll pick it up just to see if there's anything that needs, yeah, that one needs secured for sure. So this one, I had glued it straight onto the metal, and as I mentioned before, Metal doesn't really work well with paper, so I'll show you the trick here. Go ahead and put some more glue, place that back on, and then I'll take this little piece of paper. I might need a smaller one. And this is going to be lots of glue on that, just enough so it doesn't squeeze out. And then I'll tuck it right underneath the flower. And I'll show you here. I'll just cut that off so you can't see it. And you can see how this leaf is secured around the wire. Now I'm going to carefully turn this over. And on the back side, look how cute that is with all of my little fun things. On the back side, I'll go ahead and secure all of the pieces into place. Looks like this one slid off. We'll go ahead and peel this. Just because of the way I positioned it, it actually moved off. So I want to make the last of these pieces prettier. So I'm going to go ahead and make the ends rounder. And I'm just going to glue paper to paper. It feels like everything's fairly secure, but I want to put one more piece right there. Again, I'm going to curve my ends just so it looks a little bit prettier, even though you won't see it from the back side very often, unless you pick it up to read it. And at this point, I can start taking all of my glue strings off. The last step for this wreath is taking this little silk ribbon. I'm going to fold it in half and loop it around the top and then pull the strands out. And this is how I can hang my wreath. So here's two versions of these finished wreaths, and I think that there's something that you can showcase all year round because, you know, we all need a little bit more love in our lives. So let's do it in 2020. Make sure that when you share these on social, use hashtag #MadeWithLeah so that we can see your beautiful creations and share them with our creative community as well.